Fun that way when you have something to prove.
Listen to 60 Minutes, a second look, wherever you get your podcasts. CBS News, 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS.
Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Let's get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia.
Oh, no.
I will if you will.
You go, Gail.
Yeah, boy.
Settles any involvement that the Ethics Committee should have in any matters involving Mr. Gaetz.
We sense that if you're a Republican, everything is true until you can prove yourself innocent.
The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
This is just dredging up something to try to smear and discredit a candidate. It reminds me of what happened to Brett Kavanaugh. It's a disgrace.
Hi, I'm Scott McFarland, CBS News, Washington, and welcome to America Decides. A day after meeting with Republican senators on Capitol Hill, Matt Gaetz has withdrawn his name from consideration to be President-elect Donald Trump's next Attorney General. The Republican ex-Florida congressman has been facing allegations of drug abuse and sexual misconduct, allegations Gaetz denies. Another Trump pick embroiled in controversy is Pete Hegseth. Hegseth has been tapped for defense secretary and was on Capitol Hill today. Hegseth and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance met with senators as they worked to get lawmakers on board with his confirmation, despite dealing with sexual assault allegations of his own.
How did the meetings go today, sir?
Great, thank you. Look forward to engaging in that process. We take absolutely nothing for granted.
Quite a day. Ed O'Keefe is following the transition from West Palm Beach, Florida, but let's start on Capitol Hill with my colleague Nicole Killian. Nicole, based on your reporting as the afternoon concluded, what led Matt Gaetz to pull the trigger and withdraw from his running?
Well, at the end of the day, and as you very well know, Scott, it appeared that he did not have the votes. You know, you talk to senator after senator who, kind of many of them were non-committal about whether or not they would ultimately support Matt Gaetz's confirmation. And even though that potential hearing was still a month or two away, it just was clear, especially with that House ethics report potentially looming, all of these allegations of sexual misconduct, that this kind of drip, drip, drip of news certainly wasn't helping Matt Gaetz's cause.
We're going to hear from a member of the House Ethics Committee shortly about the future of the trajectory of that investigation. But based on your reporting there at the Capitol this afternoon, Nicole, any early reaction of what all this could mean for that ethics report that everybody has been so closely monitoring?
Well, I think it remains to be seen. You know, we did have a chance to catch up with the House Ethics Chair, Michael Guest, who suggested it's kind of a moot issue at this point, number one, because Matt Gaetz is no longer in Congress, which is a point that Speaker Johnson often argued. He's not part of this body, so therefore, as a private citizen, the report should be kept under wraps. And then the other part of it is, now that Gaetz has taken his name out of, consideration for Attorney General, is this report really relevant? You know, many were arguing that the report should be released so that senators could make an informed decision about his confirmation. But if he's no longer up for the job, does it now matter?
He's not the only one on Capitol Hill who is trying to secure some support this week. Pete Hegseth, Trump's choice for defense secretary, was there, and you had a chance to speak with him in the hallway this afternoon. Let's take a listen to that.
Did you sexually assault a woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, I'll keep this very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
Now, what are the senators who met with him saying about this? They no doubt have read those headlines and heard these reports. What's their reaction?
Yeah, well, it has been mixed. I mean, certainly many lawmakers that I have talked to say that they either want to hear more details or they believe that the full report should be read so people have the full context. Another point that many senators have made is that ultimately no charges were filed against Hegseth. So some of them are curious as to why. I did talk pretty extensively with Markwayne Mullen of Oklahoma, who told us that, in fact, Hegseth did discuss these allegations. And, Mullen told me that he didn't necessarily believe that this was a sexual assault. Take a listen to a bit of that exchange if we have it.
I don't think there's any way in the world you're going to say that this was a sexual assault. I read the CNN report.
What makes you so confident about that?
Have you read the report?
I actually have. I've got it right here.
I read the report too. It's pretty clear that of what took place. It was pretty clear that it was. She definitely wasn't drugged to a room, and I don't want to get into the whole situation because you guys can read it. You can read the report yourself. If you read it, you can clearly see that it was two people flirting with each other.
So after reading the report, he says it appears to him that maybe Hegseth and this woman who's described in the police report as Jane Doe, that they were flirting. However, if you also read the report, it says that this woman, according to her, she was not able to get out of this hotel room with Pete Hegseth, that she thought potentially she may have been drugged. She had a few drinks, but she said that her memory was very fuzzy from that night, that she had recollections of Hegseth being on top of her. So again, you can read the report for yourself and make your own conclusions. But again, as you heard there from Hegseth, he continued to deny any wrongdoing, which is a line not only we continue to hear from his attorney, but also from the Trump transition as well.
I suspect we're going to hear a lot about this if and when there are confirmation hearings. Nicole Killian at the Senate, thank you very much. Meanwhile, our Ed O'Keefe is tracking the transition tonight from West Palm Beach, Florida. So Ed, what can you tell us about this withdrawal and what the reaction is from Trump world, or what kind of warning Trump world might have had?
Scott, good to be with you. We have learned just in the last few minutes that the former president, the president-elect, was working the phones as recently as this morning to gauge associates and Republican senators to get a sense of how Gaetz was faring on Capitol Hill. What he was being told, again, was that there were a handful of senators. I'm told by one source, ultimately there may have been as many as 15 Republican senators who would have voted against Gaetz. Maybe a core of 4 to 6 or so, but ultimately as many as 15 that might have had concerns with the nomination. Given that, whether it was Gaetz or Trump or both of them together, realizing that there was an issue, he withdrew earlier today, stunning people almost as much as they were stunned last week when he was first named to the pick. This means now the president-elect goes back to the drawing board to try to determine who should serve as his attorney general. There's a real desire by Trump to ensure that his AG is confirmed on day one because we've been told he is determined to sign a flurry of executive orders in his early hours as president that are going to face legal scrutiny, and he wants his top prosecutor in place to help defend against the legal battles to come. So who he picks remains to be seen. We know that they'll include a series of people who used to work in the Trump administration, may have already been appointed to other positions or will be appointed to other positions. Guys like John Ratcliffe, who was nominated to serve as head of the CIA or will be nominated to serve as head of the CIA. Matt Whitaker, the former attorney general for Trump, who he says he's going to nominate to be his ambassador to NATO. There are others on this list as well, possibly also the Republican Missouri Attorney General. So when we get that announcement, remains to be seen. Remember, he had a goal of trying to get all of his top cabinet picks announced by Thanksgiving next week.
And then there's the matter of Pete Hegseth. Any early read on how Trump world is reacting to all of these revelations and all the controversies that surround Hegseth?
Well, in a statement earlier today, they stood by him, saying essentially that while that police report that was released overnight from Monterey, California, in response, the Trump team essentially saying it corroborates what Mr. Hegseth's attorney has said all along, that the incident was fully investigated and no charges were filed because police found the allegations to be false. They call Hegseth a highly respected combat veteran who they believe will help refocus the Pentagon away from what they call woke policies and back towards dealing with issues of war and military operations. So for now, at least, they're standing by Hegseth. But he, in essence, Scott, as you know, is the next big target that has drawn skepticism, concern, and criticism, opposition from Democrats, obviously, possibly from some Republicans, given these allegations and the fact that he's never run an organization quite as large as the Pentagon.
There have been all these nominations and would-be members of the cabinet announced, but there are still vacancies that have yet to be not so much filled, but have yet to have candidates announced. What are you seeing in Florida? What types of names are you hearing for these positions that have yet to have candidates announced?
We know that there is a big focus on picking someone to serve as Treasury Secretary, a handful of names still in the mix there. He's got to pick someone to lead the Council of Economic Advisors, to pick a small business administration boss. He'll have to pick someone potentially to deal with issues like cybersecurity. And there's some thought among those tracking this that he may be trying to get to a point where he can name the Treasury Secretary and a suite of other economic or economy-adjacent picks at the same time to say these are the folks that are really going to focus on the economy and making sure it stays or gets stronger. Beyond that, there's a handful of other domestic agencies to go. Labor, housing and urban development, and agriculture most especially. Series of names also considered there, including a mix of current and former or outgoing Republican members of the House. Well, we're all waiting to see whether or not we get an announcement on those. But again, the Gaetz choice now may have to go back to the top of the pile for Attorney General, given the urgency and the desire he has to get that one done quickly.
It's like a fire hose of news coming at you, and it looks like a terribly cold, unpleasant late November day in West Palm Beach. Ed O'Keefe, thanks for bearing it out.
Slight breeze.
Joining us. There you go. Thank you, Ed, very much. With Matt Gaetz out as Trump's Attorney General pick, what happens to the Ethics Committee report about him? We'll ask a member of that panel if that report will ever see the light of day. You're streaming America Decides.
Come on, Julia.
Oh, no.
I will if you will.
You go, gal.
That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Yeah, boy. It's gonna be a ride.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
How fast do you think you were going? 195 miles an hour. This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original 60 Minutes, Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I'm a voracious consumer of information and constantly curious. I want to know the basic facts of every issue and to press into the heart of the matter. Information is the currency of democracy, and that's what we bring to the table every Sunday.
When you need your sports news all the time,
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights
What a finish at the final round of play.
and in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For a 1-hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to America Decides. The fate of a House Ethics Committee report on Matt Gaetz was already uncertain even before the president-elect's former Attorney General pick withdrew from consideration Thursday. The panel, the House Ethics Committee, did not reach an agreement to make it public yesterday. Members expected to meet again on December 5th at the committee to discuss whether to release the findings of their investigation. But the Republican chair of the House panel said today the report should not come out.
I think that this should end the discussion of whether or not the Ethics Committee should continue to move forward in this matter. He has withdrawn his nomination. He is no longer a member of Congress. And so I think that this settles any involvement that the Ethics Committee should have in any matters involving Mr. Gaetz.
Maryland Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey joins us now. He, too, was a member of the House Ethics Committee. Mr. Ivey, we always appreciate your time. You mentioned yesterday as you walked into the hearing that you do acknowledge the Senate would have some interest in reading this House Ethics Committee report that's been produced. Does anything change now that Matt Gaetz has stood down from being a nominee?
Well, potentially, he might continue to pursue other offices. For example, he is still the congressman-elect to his seat in Florida. I know he stated that he wasn't going to seek to fill that seat, but that was while his nomination for Attorney General was still pending. I don't know what the final position will be on that. There are other possibilities, too. I know Marco Rubio has been nominated to be part of the Trump administration cabinet. It could be that Gaetz could be eligible or, in line potentially to fill the rest of Marco Rubio's term. And I've also seen conversations about him potentially pursuing the governor's race in Florida in 2026. So certainly the possibilities of him seeking other public office is still out there.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get that clear, Congressman. The prospect of Mr. Gaetz trying to return to the House in a seat he won in November, or perhaps being appointed to a Senate seat, you're arguing that makes the committee's work more worthy of release to the public?
Well, I think it's up to the committee to decide that. I'm a little surprised the chairman made the statement that you just played, but because there is precedent for the House Ethics Committee releasing reports even after an individual has left Congress for whatever reason. So the fact that he's not a member of Congress anymore and not a nominee anymore does not mean that the House committee cannot release the report.
No, there's very limited things you can say about what happens behind those doors at the House Ethics Committee by necessity, but the chair did announce, and the ranking member did acknowledge, I believe, a December 5th meeting when you will come back from the Thanksgiving time away from Washington. Anything you can do in terms of setting expectations? Is that a normal meeting? Is that a meeting to follow up on yesterday? Is there something in between?
There hasn't been much normal involved with this process since the Gaetz nomination was announced. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen on December 5th, but I look forward to the committee coming back together. We have had some good history working together in this Congress. The Santos process and the report we issued there, I thought was really outstanding work, especially by the staff. The staff's been complimented on their work in this and other matters as well. So I think we can do good work, and I think we play an important role for the House, and I look forward to us getting back to work.
There were these two members of the House Democratic Caucus who, on Wednesday, talked about this effort to force a House vote to get some of this or all of this released publicly. I suspect they may have asked your opinion on this as a Democrat on the panel. What would you tell them?
Well, I think, those were aimed at, forcing votes for public release of the documents. And I haven't really had much of a conversation with them on that front. And certainly, the circumstances have changed in the last few hours. But, when we come back, they'll have the option of reintroducing that. And depending on how it's done, it could force a vote on the floor within 48 hours, either or both of them. So I think we'll have to see how that plays out when we get back.
Is that a good idea? It seemed to be another one of those not normal things, but we're not in normal times.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think, I think there are a variety of options that are open to the House at this point. Certainly the House floor vote is one, and that would show the will of the entire House if we go forward with that. The House Ethics Committee making a decision could be relevant too. It could be that the House Ethics Committee makes a decision, and based on what we do or do not do, you can still have the floor vote on the House resolutions. So there's a variety of ways this could play out, and I'm not necessarily pushing for one way or the other, but I am anxious to see how it moves forward.
With just a moment left, Congressman, can you explain to folks not familiar with the House Committee on Ethics why it operates the way it operates? Obviously, there's a lot of secrecy to it. There's also that even party split. Why is it designed to, what appears to be, set itself up for sometimes an impasse on a charged issue?
Well, it is set up so that you have 5 from the Republicans and 5 from the Democrats, and that's so that you have it be more bipartisan or hopefully nonpartisan than a regular committee would be, where the majority party has more members and can have party line votes to get something out of the committee and passed in that way. And I think it's a good idea to try and have some degree of bipartisanism as we move forward with these kinds of investigations, and especially if sanctions are imposed against a member. But it is sort of like a grand jury in that there's a lot of confidentiality and secrecy connected with that. And I know sometimes it can take a long time to get these things done. And the public gets frustrated with that. Some of my colleagues get frustrated with that too. But sometimes it's better to do it the right way than necessarily in a fast way. So it's a challenge, but I think it's the best way that we can go forward and preserve to some degree a nonpartisan or at least bipartisan approach to handling these matters.
Glenn Ivey, who emerged uninjured from walking through 200 reporters and cameras outside the ethics hearing yesterday. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Many Democrats are reflecting on how their party should move forward after the sweeping election defeats across the country this month. Ahead, we hear from Joe Manchin, a retiring independent senator who left the Democratic Party. You're streaming America Decides.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Let 60 Minutes take you on a private tour of the National Archives.
So there may be treasures like this buried in boxes.
Historical secrets from America's past.
So this is original from 1778?
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original, 48 Hours, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright shiny faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with a neighbor.
Hey.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
CBS Reports goes deep into Mexico.
What is your role in the Sinaloa cartel?
To find out why the cartels keep getting stronger and wealthier.
This is a war, but we're not fighting it. Our citizens are dying.
Funding Cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
And welcome back to America Decides. We track all the fallout from Matt Gaetz' decision to withdraw his nomination for U.S. Attorney General. Major, may not be shocking, but it had a little shock wave to it. Major Garrett joins us now to talk about the shock wave. What are you learning about the decision and how it came about?
So Matt Gaetz and the Trump transition team began making calls over this weekend. And they found out very quickly that there were, at least I'm told, by credible sources, 7 to 8 hard Senate Republican votes against Matt Gaetz that were not going to budge, that no amount of arm twisting or cajoling or social media pressure was going to make them move. Well, you know and I know that's more than enough to kill that nomination. I'm also credibly told that if this had come to a floor vote, that 7 to 8 could have expanded to 15 or 16. Because those other senators who were uncomfortable about Matt Gaetz would know, well, they're not the ones doing it.
Sure.
So he had an enormous problem.
The 7 to 8 makes it safer for the others to jump on board,
Precisely,
too. Yeah.
precisely. You've seen that dynamic play out in lots of things. So this was always doomed, based on the conversations I had on the Hill this week. And you know it was doomed because it ended so quickly. I mean, this is barely a nomination fight that's even begun. Yeah. And it's already ended, and it's already caved in. President-elect Trump didn't waste or use a lot of political clout. And Matt Gaetz has retained his viability. He's now a mini martyr within the Trump circle. And if, as devised, their plot to either elevate him to Attorney General or certainly let him resign from the House and keep the House Ethics Committee report from ever reaching public view, that maintains whatever political future Matt Gaetz may envision for himself. Something that would not be true if that Ethics Committee report did see the light of day.
Trump also did choose his possible nominee, likely nominee for Deputy Attorney General. It's Todd Blanche, that defense lawyer we saw next to him every day in Manhattan during the felony trial. Does that raise the profile of Blanche? Does it mean he could become the successor?
Might, but let's be very clear about one thing. Whether it's Todd Blanche or someone else who is the Attorney General designee, that person, man or woman, will be a fierce Trump loyalist, first and foremost. So this idea that, oh, it'll be a different kind of Attorney General designee, wrong. It will be a loyalist, and that will be among the first, if not the only, litmus test for whomever President-elect Trump suggests to the Senate after Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, he's always made the argument, I think, consistently, this is his most important or among his most important positions. He's not going to sacrifice or shortchange himself.
He's not going to appoint someone like Jeff Sessions or Bill Barr, whom he came to believe did not defend him sufficiently. He wants a defender first and foremost of him, and then someone else who will also take time to run the Justice Department, but most importantly, look out for the president's interests first.
Now, you have this interview with Joe Manchin, the outgoing senator from West Virginia. First off, he talked about Matt Gaetz, right?
We did that separately. I interviewed Senator Manchin for The Takeout. For those who are avid listeners or watchers of The Takeout, The Matt Gaetz part separate from that, because I didn't want to have Matt Gaetz be something that we'd be talking about over the weekend. That would be old news by then. But here's Senator Manchin on Matt Gaetz's decision to withdraw.
I think Matt Gaetz did the most respectful thing for our country, his country and our country, and he did the most respectful thing for his family. So I thank him for that.
If the president had tried to exercise all political capital, that would have been a wasted effort with Matt Gaetz, probably.
I think, let me just say this. I believe the first 4 years, the president has learned a lot more than what people give him credit for, President Trump. And he knows where the buttons are. Okay? He knows it. He's learned that. And I think he absorbed it very well. So he knew when, you got to know when to hold him and know when to fold him. I think he knew that.
So, first of all, it's always said in Washington when someone withdraws, they did the right thing for the country, they did the right thing for their family. Okay, whatever. Manchin also knows that this was a dead letter on Capitol Hill and probably thinks that Trump was wise, he said so, not to push it.
Kind of like that he quoted Kenny Rogers there, but let's put that aside for a moment. He left the Democratic Party, Joe Manchin did, became an independent, kind of foreshadowing some of the problems the party's going to have in the elections 2 weeks ago. What did he say about his old party's fortunes?
He said that he became estranged from the Democratic Party, as many West Virginians did. We discussed that in 1988, Michael Dukakis carried West Virginia, one of 10 states Michael Dukakis carried in that 1988 presidential election. And ever since then, the state had been drifting toward Republicans. And Joe Manchin said it's because in his words, hardworking, salt-of-the-earth West Virginia Democrats felt that the Democratic Party no longer valued their work or work generally. We're looking out for people who didn't work, giving more handouts from the government and doing less to support people who actually wanted to work. Here's how Senator Manchin phrased it.
You don't give a damn about the working person anymore. You care about people that aren't working. Don't try to make me mainstream something that's not mainstream America. It's not what we should be teaching in our schools or what you should think my family is not right enough or we don't believe like you. Don't get into that part of my life. I can handle that.
Does the Democratic Party at its upper echelon have an intolerance problem?
For people like me?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I left.
That's why I left.
Yeah. What else did he have to say? He's got so much to unpack, having been a governor, having been a senator here. What else did he talk about?
He said the Biden administration had 3 enormous blind spots, all of which led to the defeat of Kamala Harris in 2024. Inflation, Afghanistan, and immigration. On 2 of those issues, Manchin has a creditable record of arguing with the White House over inflation, too much spending. He warned them, he said, emphatically that this was going to cause inflation and it was going to be a political problem. And he said he tussled with them over and over again on immigration. They were too permissive at the border, allowing too many people to claim asylum without any proper U.S. vetting or nearly sufficient U.S. vetting. And he said that is a problem that persists. He aligns himself with President-elect Trump on that issue, prioritizing him, maybe not all the rhetoric. But he said those 3 blind spots in particular hampered the Biden administration and were things that Kamala Harris, once assuming the nomination, could not talk herself around or out.
Yeah, during those months in 2022, there was nobody more pivotal, arguably, in Washington than Joe Manchin. Some critics called him President Manchin, and he departs during a very busy moment. It shouldn't go unnoticed. We will make sure that we watch the rest of Major's interview with Senator Joe Manchin for the takeout. That's Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern on our CBS News app. You also can watch it at 10:30 Eastern right here on CBS News 24/7. Major, thank you very much. Thanks. Matt Gaetz has taken up most of the oxygen so far during the Trump transition. And now that he's withdrawn, our political panel breaks down what that could mean for the other cabinet picks sparking controversy. You're streaming America Decides.
An
original documentary from CBS Reports.
That desired farm, it's a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I can see clearly now.
Clearly, CBS Mornings.
Weekdays on CBS.
Yeah!
Tony, coming? No, I'm gonna stick around for an hour.
CBS Mornings Plus with Adriana Diaz and Tony DeCopel right after CBS Mornings.
It's just like mornings.
Plus fun.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
These 7 miles of tunnels were the secret storage site for fuel for the Navy's Pacific Fleet in planes.
So this is one of the tanks.
Oh my gosh.
What happened 20 stories below ground is a story for 60 Minutes.
This thing that was a lifeline for the fleet is a threat.
That's right.
I'm Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours, and of all the cases I've covered, this is the one that troubles me most. Listen to Murder in the Orange Grove, the troubled case against Carsley Green, wherever you get your podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable.
The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Sunday morning, a visit with the Wayans at Papa's house, plus affairs of state with the diplomat, and in praise of pigeons. Listen for the trumpet.
As to what President Trump will do next, we will see, but I am committed to helping him where I can. I will not be a rubber stamp to his nominees, but I will also not engage in an angry mob mentality.
Familiar face. That was South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham responding to Matt Gaetz' withdrawing as President-elect Trump's pick to be Attorney General. So what happens now that the former congressman is out? Let's bring in the all-star team. Haima Moore and Maura Gillespie are both with us. Haima is former director of the Office of the DNC Chair, Jamie Harrison, and Maura previously served as an advisor to former Republican House Speaker John Boehner and former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Maura, we start with you in a moment. First, we're going to start with Haima, because you're closer to me physically. Is that a good reason?
Let's do it.
All right. There must have been some sense of relief among any number of people, Democrats and Republicans, when Matt Gaetz stood down.
I don't know if it was relief. I think people were expecting that to happen. You know, a lot of folk in D.C. and around the country were surprised that President Trump even nominated Matt Gaetz. And so I think two things happened. He's now not a member of Congress, and he's also not going to be the Attorney General. And so a lot of people are rejoicing in that. But, I mean, Donald Trump, as the elected president, has the right to appoint whomever he likes. And the Senate can confirm them or not. And so it was very obvious that over the last couple of days, Matt Gaetz was losing support in the Senate. It wasn't going to happen for him.
Let's take a listen to some of that reaction, because we've gathered some of it, Haima, speaking to the point you just made. Take a listen.
Were senators breathing a sigh of relief over this, that they didn't have to go through this, since he was so controversial?
I think there was a widespread sense of this was a positive development for the confirmation process.
There's a sense of relief about it, of course. I think he did a pretty noble thing, frankly, honorable thing by getting out himself.
So now that that's done, would you expect Trump to pivot at all, the type of person he's looking to pick for Attorney General?
I think so. I mean, look, Donald Trump is a very smart individual. In some ways, I think he played a little bit of political gamemanship by nominating Matt Gaetz to begin with. And so this next person that he nominates should have an easier, I think, experience up on the Hill with the senators. And so, look, I don't think he's going to go full-fledged, super liberal, obviously, or super moderate, but I think he'll be a little more thoughtful in this next nominee.
Maura Gillespie, let's bring you in now from New York. In his statement today, Maura, as you read it, the former congressman said he doesn't want to be a distraction. Matt Gaetz has a history of not being uncomfortable as a distraction. What do you think was behind this?
He's looking to run for governor of Florida. I mean, quite frankly, he is not somebody who has shied away from taking any and every chance to get the limelight. Matt Gaetz is known on Capitol Hill for being somebody who is just looking for a camera almost at all times and really shoving it in the faces of his colleagues. And so it's almost laughable that he went over to the Senate side pretending as though he hadn't been causing problems for them while his entire time in Congress. But I also point out that he technically could still be in Congress. He only resigned from being in this current Congress, and as he was elected, he could technically be in Congress come January.
In fact, the higher-ranking congressional officials who oversee Capitol offices and elections said, yes, if he chooses to, he could take his seat January 3rd. He would just get the worst choice of office space because they had the lottery today for office spaces. With all this drama, though, Maura, surrounding Matt Gaetz, it does kind of block out the drama that's emerging about Pete Hegseth, Trump's choice to be the defense secretary. We asked Mississippi Republican Senator Roger Wicker about Pete Hegseth and those accusations. Take a listen to what Senator Wicker had to say.
Did you have any concerns?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked it that way, because that's what I came to talk about today, is defense policy and making our country stronger so that we can stay out of wars.
The other issues are not consequential to you?
Oh, they are consequential, but I can assure you that that's what is paramount in my mind.
So, Maura, you advised Republican leaders in the past. What would you tell a Republican if you were advising him or her about how to carry the Pete Hegseth headlines that have been coming over the last 24 hours?
It's going to be tough given the fact that they do want to focus on the issues. They want to focus on policy. They want to focus on getting the job done, but at the same time to really question and look into what Pete Hegseth has done. You also have a president-elect who has been found liable for sexual assault. And so to make any accusations or to make any statements about Pete Hegseth before a confirmation hearing, you're putting yourself kind of as a hypocrite almost and contradicting yourself to make a comment there and then not have that comment for the president-elect. So I think for most of these members, it's best to avoid it until they go into the confirmation hearings and when they will then have to be faced with, okay, this came out, now how do you react? Right now it's all speculation and stories and police reports that they can read, but they're going to wait until the committee hearings to make their final decisions.
Hey, Jaime, we have a minute left. Let's talk about Democrats. How about that?
Let's do it, please.
There's a race for the DNC chair position. You have unique insight on that office and how it functions. So what should we look out for and who should we look out for?
It's been an exciting 2 days.
There it is.
So the DNC chairman's race is going to take place in February of 2025, but we've already had two candidates that have announced over the last couple of days. Ken Martin, who's the chairman of the Minnesota Party, a fantastic guy, and then, of course, former governor of Maryland, Martin O'Malley. Both are tremendous individuals. But there are others who are thinking about it. Mitch Landrieu is thinking about it. Rahm Emanuel is thinking about it. Ben Wickler in Wisconsin is thinking about it. And, of course, if you're Stacey Abrams and Keisha Lance Bottoms, you got to think about it as well, particularly if you're a black woman in leadership. And so it's going to be an opportunity for Democrats to sort of realign our agenda, our messaging. There's been a lot of talk about how we approach economic messaging over the last couple of years, couple of cycles. So that's going to come up. The union support is going to be back on the table in some ways. And so you'll have a lot of conversations around the Democratic agenda. But the race is an insider's game. Only 500 or so people vote for the chairman, Democratic members of the DNC. And so you'll see a lot of national media about it, but the actual votes will come from the DNC members, and that's going to take place in February.
I'm Moore. It's always an election. Maura Gillespie, thank you both for joining us.
Good to see you. Thank you.
We appreciate it. House Speaker Mike Johnson is establishing a new bathroom policy that targets the first openly transgender woman elected to Congress. Ahead, my conversation with Representative-elect Sarah McBride. You're streaming America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's gonna be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm gonna remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was gonna be born, he was only gonna live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Representative-elect Sarah McBride of Delaware says she will abide by a new policy implemented by House Speaker Mike Johnson prohibiting transgender people from using bathrooms on Capitol Hill that do not correspond with their, quote, biological sex. Earlier today, the first openly transgender woman elected to Congress sat down with me and discussed why she is complying with this controversial measure.
I would like my grace to contrast with the grandstanding that we're seeing right now. I would like my approach of respecting everyone to contrast with the disrespect that we are seeing right now. I'd like people to see my competence in governing contrast with their chaos.
Do you follow this rule? Do you adhere to it?
I have already said that I will not use multi-stall women's restrooms in the Capitol. But again, that is my choice here. I always knew that there would be an effort to politicize my use of a restroom. Yeah. And if anyone had thought to ask me about what I was planning on doing, I would have been happy to tell them. Yeah. But again, this is not an issue. And this has never been an issue in this complex. Everything was fine until some members of the small Republican conference majority decided to get headlines and to manufacture a crisis.
Sarah McBride takes the oath of office on January 3rd. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he tested a new intermediate-range missile in a strike on Ukraine. The new attack follows Ukrainian strikes on Russian soil this week that used U.S.-made long-range missiles. Our Charlie D'Agata is following the conflict from the Pentagon.
U.S. officials tell CBS News that the missile that struck the eastern city of Dnipro is what they described as an experimental intermediate-range ballistic missile, and it's the first of its kind to be used in this conflict. And Pentagon officials said this afternoon Russia had warned the United States before firing that missile through nuclear risk reduction channels. So initial reports out of Ukraine described it as an ICBM. President Zelensky himself saying that the missile had the same kind of parameters, speed, altitude of an intercontinental ballistic missile. That's, of course, a concern because of the range they cover in a short period of time, and that they're capable of carrying a nuclear warhead, not that this one was. But U.S. officials said they had warned Ukraine and allies in recent days that Russia was likely to test a new weapon, and Russia only has a handful of these weapons. In a nationally televised address today, Russian President Vladimir Putin confirmed that Russia had launched a new medium-range ballistic missile, these are his words, with a non-nuclear warhead. And he warned there would be more on the way. U.S. defense systems cannot stop them, he said, and Russia would give advance warning before the next launch in order to avoid civilian casualties, he says. So he said it was in response to Ukrainian strikes inside Russia using U.S. and British-supplied longer-range missiles. He had already changed the Russian nuclear doctrine, lowering the bar to use nuclear weapons in self-defense. The decision to allow Ukraine to use those U.S.-supplied ATACMS, followed by the British version, the Storm Shadow, came after more than 10,000 North Korean troops entered this fight alongside Russian forces in the Kursk region, U.S. officials say. So on several fronts, this conflict is now escalating, now more than 1,000 days since it began. Scott?
Charlie D'Agata, thank you very much. Republicans have flipped control of the U.S. Senate, but one seat in the upper chamber remains undecided. We'll dig into that next. You're streaming America Decides.
CBS Mornings Plus, clearly more news, more smart conversation.
More money-saving tips, more recipes.
More uplifting ways to get you on your way.
Plus, more sports, more weather.
Clearly, more CBS Mornings.
Plus,
sunshiny day.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
I have a dorky look to me. I don't look like a criminal at all.
60 Minutes has reported on fraudsters, criminals, and hoodlums. But what this minor league thief was able to do surprised even us.
These are Yogi Berra's World Series rings.
A sports story you'll have to see to believe.
Need more time with 48 Hours? Go deep behind every true crime episode with first-hand accounts from 48 Hours Investigations.
Were you at all prepared for what happened in this case?
Shock is the word that comes to mind.
Get inside the twists and turns and get in on the case. Listen to Postmortem from 48 Hours, now available wherever you get your podcasts.
I think we're very cute.
Yeah, I think we need to send out a Christmas card like this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
Sunday morning, the Music Man, T-Bone Burnett, plus Ted Danson and Martha Stewart with Just the Recipe. Listen for the trumpet.
I report from a lot of war zones, but I don't really take the same risks.
He's one of the bravest war correspondents 60 Minutes has ever met. But it's his relationship with his mother that you will remember. Plus, the robots making marble masterpieces in Italy.
As a kid growing up in Chicago, there was one horror movie I was too scared to watch. It was called Candyman. But did you know that the movie Candyman was partly inspired by an actual murder? Listen to Candyman, the true story behind the bathroom mirror murder, wherever you get your podcasts.
The CBS News original 60 Minutes opens its archives.
Pretty loose for Friday night.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not my first show.
With moments you haven't heard before.
It's almost more fun that way when you have something to prove.
Listen to 60 Minutes, a second look, wherever you get your podcasts.
While we already know Republicans are going to control the U.S. Senate at the start of next year, one Senate race is still uncalled, more than 2 weeks after Election Day. A statewide recount still underway in Pennsylvania's contest between Democratic incumbent Bob Casey and Republican challenger Dave McCormick. According to unofficial results, McCormick leads Casey by roughly 16,000 votes. CBS News Pittsburgh Money and Politics editor John Delano joins us now. John, how long is this recount going to last? How long is this going to drag out for?
Well, first, Scott, it's good to be with you as always. You know, in Pennsylvania, the law is quite clear. The results of the recount must be submitted by next Tuesday, the 26th of November. So we're going to know one way or other whether Dave McCormick did beat Bob Casey on Election Day. You know, if so, this will be the closest election for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania history, 16,000 some votes. I was going back and taking a look. The last time we had an election this close for U.S. Senate was back in 1956, when then Philadelphia Mayor Joe Clark, a Democrat, beat the incumbent Republican Senator James Duff. So, you know, this is pretty historic to win by such a narrow margin. But the recount will probably certify that the final result is very close to the unofficial result.
3 terms for Bob Casey would end based on that projection. You were the first local journalist to interview President-elect Trump during his presidency and during his most recent campaign. I want to play a clip from your interview with him just a short while ago, earlier this year.
Do you have any concerns that the 2024 election in Pennsylvania will be free, fair, and run correctly by the election officials in our 67 counties? And if so, what are those concerns?
Well, I absolutely do have concerns. Anytime you have mail-ins and anytime you have the kind of things that they have in Pennsylvania, it's not concerns. I mean, we just have to stop it. I think we're going to win by so much, you know, it's too big to rig. And I think we're going to win by so much it won't matter. But we've got to stop them from cheating.
Well, how will they cheat? How will the Democrats cheat in Pennsylvania?
About 12 different ways.
So it was a relatively sizable margin by which President-elect
Trump
won.
The president-elect won Pennsylvania by 120,000 votes. I should point out that we have paper ballots in Pennsylvania. Every vote is now cast by paper ballot. It's counted electronically, but there's paper evidence of every vote, whether it's a mail-in vote or whether it's a day of vote. And, you know, the president won, it was narrowly 1.73%, but 120,000 votes out of 7 million cast is a decent enough margin. Joe Biden won the state by 80,000 4 years ago. So if there was any cheating going on, I don't know who by whom. Nobody has alleged any cheating in this election any more than there was, frankly, in 2020 or 2016, when the state back then voted for Trump again.
We'll talk about you for a moment. You are retiring after a lengthy and legendary career covering politics. We tried to stop it. We didn't succeed. You're still going to go ahead and retire. So as we embark on another Trump presidency, what are the lessons you've learned as a political journalist that are wise to share?
Oh, my. Well, yeah, after 30 years of doing this, I guess it sort of becomes second nature. I think that one of the things that I have tried very hard to do, and part of it is based on the fact that for 14 years before I got into journalism, I was chief of staff to a Pennsylvania congressman So I know very much the importance of staff. And like you, Scott, I spent a lot of time with the staff people of whether it was Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or any of our national figures, because it is through those staff people that you really connect and get the interviews that nobody else gets. I do also think that I benefited by coming from a state like Pennsylvania that is must win. And everybody knows, I hope, that KDKA is the #1 political station in Pennsylvania, particularly in Western Pennsylvania. And at the same time, I've been around the scene for a long time, so we try hard. And I'm aggressive, like you are, and most of our folks at CBS, in going after these interviews. So I think a combination of knowing the folks behind the scenes and respecting them for the work they do really adds up to some good interviews from time to time. And I might add, every time I do an interview, my focus is on what would Pennsylvanians ask these candidates. I'm not interested in the Washington Beltway stories. I'm interested in what would Pennsylvanians want to know from the candidates running. And I think the candidates know that and appreciate that I'm not getting caught up in some of the Beltway nonsense.
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes that the candidates for the highest office in the land make a point of talking to you, not just to Pennsylvania reporters, but to you. John Delano from Pittsburgh, thank you very much. And that does it for today. We're back with another edition of America Decides, Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report on November 21st, 2024. I'm Lindsay Reiser. Tonight, back to the drawing board. President-elect Trump is in search of a new Attorney General nominee after his first choice withdraws from consideration. Meanwhile, another controversial cabinet pick